where are agribusinesses going to be located at? That's often dictated by many different factors. Some of those factors include, what about the location of inputs in the markets? Where are you going to be acquiring your inputs from? Where are you going to be selling your good at? How far away is that? Where is that typically located? That's going to be an important aspect of an agribusiness. Another important aspect is the cost and the skill of the labor in that area. If it costs too much for that particular skill level, it might not be a good place to start up your agribusiness. Also, the community plays an important role. How are the schools? How are the hospitals? What are the taxes like in that area? What is the climate like in that area? In a lot of cases, in terms of agriculture, you might be having to hire people in to move into the area, into your company. And making sure that they feel at home in this area, accustomed to this area, is going to be very important in terms of helping them stay at your business longer. Another aspect is, do you need specialized services? Is there specialized trucking requirements that you're going to need to meet? Things of that nature. And then also waste. Waste is an important factor, especially whenever you start talking about aspects such as feedlots that have a lot of urine and fecal matter, or a lot of urine and manure that needs to go into a waste pile, basically. So what are the laws, what are the regulations on that waste in that area? That often plays a critical role. So, where are the firms actually going to be located? Are they going to be located near the producer or the consumer? Typically, those firms at the beginning of the marketing channel, including your input suppliers and your assemblers as well as your processors, they're going to be located more in the rural areas near the agricultural producers. That's typically where you're going to find your input suppliers, such as tractor dealers. You're typically not going to find a tractor dealer in the middle of inner city of any major city, such as New York. You're not going to find a tractor dealer in the middle of New York, but rather you'd find those tractor dealers on the outskirts of New York in those urban areas. In those rural areas is where you're going to find those input suppliers, as well as the assemblers. You're going to find the grain elevators. You're going to find the auction barns in those areas that are in rural areas, not these urban cities. They're located more near the producer because they more so serve the producer than they do a consumer. On the other side, firms at the end of the marketing channel, such as wholesalers, retailers, they're located more towards the consumer. You're more inclined to see large retailers and large wholesalers in very urbanized areas across maybe in the East Coast or the West Coast than finding a lot of those big retail stores or big wholesale stores in the middle of a population or a town with a population of, say, 100. You're going to find those wholesalers and those retailers in areas where there is a lot of customers. So what we need to know is that those at the beginning of the marketing channel, input suppliers and assemblers as well as producers, are located near the producers. Those at the end of the marketing channel, retailers, wholesalers, they're located near the consumer. What about processors? I've kind of left processors out this whole time. Where are the processors going to be located? Well, processors are going to be located based off a couple different factors. One is the economies of transportation. How much does it cost to transport their good, their commodity, or how much does it cost to transport the commodity to them, and then transport that processed good out? And another thing that we got to consider is the perishability of those goods. Is the commodity that we're buying, is it perishable, or is the product that we're selling perishable? So let me give you an example on that. Milk, for example, would be a highly perishable commodity that the processors are going to be located on this supply side. They're more supply oriented because their product, their commodity, is highly perishable. Versus the product that they sell, the commodity is perishable, but the product that they sell might be yogurt, cheese, or something of that nature, isn't quite as perishable. So they're going to locate their processing plants closer to the producers on this supply orientation because they're going to be bringing all that perishable good into them. Then they're going to process it. Then they have more time to get it to the customers. And then transportation is not that big of a factor. So milk, or a commodity that's perishable, is going to be supply oriented. On the other side, a you're going to be more market oriented is if the product that you're selling is highly perishable. So an example of that would be bread. Wheat is not all that perishable, but bread is. So you want to set up your processing plant closer to the consumers and then truck the wheat in. So that way, for example, we can truck the wheat in because it's not going to go bad. Then we can bake the bread and ship the bread out that is highly perishable and it's going to go bad in a couple weeks to all of these individual retail stores and wholesalers and retail stores and get them in the hands of the customer faster. And it also depends on transportation cost. So the beef industry is a good example of that transportation cost. We see that live cattle are not quite as perishable as beef is, or meat. Meat will go bad faster than a live cow will. Typically, the live cow just keeps on living. But we find that the packing plants are actually located more towards that supply side than on the market side. And the reason for that is it is cheaper to truck processed beef than it is to truck live cattle. So they would rather process the animals and pay the transportation costs, or pay less transportation costs of processing just beef or transporting just beef than they would paying for the transportation costs of transporting live cattle. So transportation costs come in and play in very heavily when you're talking about certain agricultural goods. And in the next video, we'll begin to talk about the geographic location of these producers, or of these processors.